Welcome to Do You Ever Wonder with your host, Mike Haltman. It's the podcast that will answer your questions about many of the things in life we've always wanted to know more about. Our guests, experts in their chosen field, will enlighten us about subjects ranging from real estate, business, career, science, philanthropy, and much more. Proudly presented by Hallmark Abstract Service, it is once again time to sit back, relax, and enjoy the ride on our information superhighway. And now, here's Mike Haltman.
Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to Do You Ever Wonder? My name is indeed Mike Haltman. I am the CEO of Hallmark Abstract Service, but more importantly, today I am the host of the Do You Ever Wonder podcast. And we brought this to the Do You Ever Wonder because, you know, I know personally, and I know that a lot of other people are the same way, we wonder about a lot of different things. And this gives us the forum to try and bring those things out. And today's guest, I have to give him props because originally this podcast was audio only. And he said, if you want me to come onto your podcast, you need to be visual as well. So, you know, I don't usually like getting bullied, but in this case, I made an exception, and I'm certainly very glad that I did. No question about it. Although they do say that I personally have a face for radio, and actually our guest has said the same thing, but I think we're both selling ourselves short.
No.
Now, his podcast has been downloaded over 10 million times.
12.
Over 12 million times. Time flies. So it's, I believe, the most downloaded commercial real estate podcast on iTunes. The name is the Lifetime Cashflow Through Real Estate podcast. And I'm very happy to have him here as our guest. Please welcome Rod Khleif.
Thanks for having me, Michael. Appreciate you, buddy. Looking forward to this. And I'd forgotten that I told you got to go video, and I'd forgotten all about that, honestly. So I get interviewed quite a bit, and of course I forgot what I had for breakfast. So anyway, it's funny.
You know what? I don't know. We may be in the same general ballpark of age. I'm not sure, but I have the same problem.
Yeah. I'm 62. Yeah. So
yeah, I'm 62 also.
There you go.
63. When's your birthday?
January. Yeah.
I'm
a little older than me. Yeah.
A little older, but that's okay. So I'd like to read a quote. The quote is, happiness doesn't come from achieving goals. It comes from progress and growth, coupled with contributions and giving back. Thank God I finally got that memo. Now, I believe you're the author of that quote.
Sounds like me.
And my question is, when and where in your career did you get that memo?
Okay. Well, typically I build up to that moment, but we can start there. So
I want to start on the high notes.
Okay. All right. Well, that was actually a low note, believe it or not. So, you know, I worked 20 years to build this. I knew I wanted to live on the beach, and when I immigrated when I was 6, we ended up in Denver, Colorado, and that's where I lived for 30 years. And there's no beach in Denver, but I manifested and visualized myself building this beautiful, and it ultimately happened, this $8 million mansion on the beach, a spectacular home. I mean, I owned the beach on one side. I had my boats on the back side. It was called a Gulf to Bay. It was a slice through an island. Unthinkable when I was young, but I made it happen. And you know, so I worked for this thing for 20 years. And I mean, just let me describe it a little more, just so you get a picture. So giant waterfall, wide waterfall from the second floor balcony into the pool. You had to walk through the waterfall to get in the pool. Pool was in magazines. I had, wine cellar, elevator, big spiral staircase up through the middle of the house. On the second floor, I had aquariums wrapped around the staircase. It cost me almost $200,000. So this gives you an idea of the place. Anyway, so 2 months after I moved in this house, again, I worked for it for 20 years. 2 months after I moved in, I'm floating in the pool at night, and I'm looking up at this testament to my ego, which is really what it was. So, when I immigrated when I was 6, I got picked on in school and all the stuff we've all been through. But I came up with this belief system that I wasn't good enough because of these childhood experiences. A lot of people have these, supportive belief systems. And the reason the acronym for belief systems is BS is because 99% of them are just that BS. But that hugely impacted my life, both positively and negatively, because I had to prove to the world I was good enough, right? So I'm looking up at this testament to my ego. And again, I'd worked for it for 20 years. This is 2 months after I moved in. My family's inside sleeping. It's at night. The pool's changing colors. It's got fiber optic lighting. And I'm looking up at this thing and I got depressed. And I don't mean just a little bummed. I mean, I was really bummed. And I'm like, what the hell? I mean, I had the Maserati and the Mercedes in the garage, the boats, the jet skis, the family, the house. I mean, I'd achieved success by societal standards, like times 1,000. And here's what was going on, Michael. There were several things going on, but one of them was exactly the thing you just described. They say the happiest days of a boat owner's life are the day they buy the boat and the day they sell the boat, right? It's never about the goals. You need them. You need the goals to create what Napoleon Hill in his book, Think and Grow Rich, calls a burning desire. You got to have a burning desire to push through those limiting beliefs, those BS belief systems, or to push through fear, or to get uncomfortable. We know the comfort zone's a warm place. We also know nothing grows there, right? And so you need the goals, but it's never about the goals. It's about who you become on your path to the goals. But happiness comes from progress and growth. And so I had achieved this massive goal, and I didn't know what I was going to do next. And so how am I going to continue to progress and grow? So that was one thing. The second thing was,
well, let me ask you a quick question.
Okay.
So you had achieved all this wealth. You had achieved the house you were looking for. You had achieved monetary success.
Mm-hmm.
Were you happy?
Yeah. No, I was in a loving relationship. I mean, it imploded ultimately, but I had two beautiful kids, beautiful kids. And yeah, no, I was happy. It had nothing to do with that. It had to do with the things that I'm describing here. One, it was like, you shouldn't achieve a big goal with having other goals lined up behind it as well, because like the good book says, without a vision, the people perish. I didn't know what I was going to do next. I didn't have a vision for the future. I spent a lot of time following Tony Robbins around the planet, and went to his events literally for 20 years. And he's the best in the world at this, by the way. And he would ask in an audience, who's suicidal? And a lot of people would raise their hand. It's kind of shocking how many people are actually suicidal in a group of 2,000 or 3,000 or 5,000 or whatever. And what was interesting that you see patterns when you hear enough of these, and most of all of these people had no vision for the future, period. There was no ability to visualize the future. But anyway, so that's one thing. Second thing is happiness comes from progress and growth. And I didn't know what I was going to do next. So that's the second thing. But here's the bigger thing, Michael. And that is, I had been totally focused on me, prove the world I'm good enough, prove the world I matter, Rod. It was all about me. And luckily, I figured out I had to get back. This is so unusual for me to be depressed. And so I went out and bought a bunch of books. I wasn't ready to do therapy or anything, although I believe in it, but I didn't at the time. And so I bought some books, and one of them was Tony's book, and mentioned Tony again. So I went to see him live because I was so impressed with what I read. And I found out that he fed families for the holidays. And so I'm like, what a concept, do something for someone else. I had to be 40 to get that memo. I'm embarrassed to admit that. But so I got back home and I called my brother. Actually, forgive me. Nope. My brother actually attended it with me. We were both excited about it. That's right. But he flew back to Denver, and I called him and I said, hey, let's feed 5 families for the holidays, for Thanksgiving, because I was flying back for Thanksgiving. And so I said, call your church, see who really needs help. And we found 5 families. I'm going to tell you, the third family changed my life. So we bought food for the kids. We found out they had kids. I'm sorry, toys for the kids. We bought food. We bought frozen turkey, baskets of food. It was a lot of fun buying this stuff. But we go up to this third family, and it's a single mom with 5 kids in what was a crappy 1-bedroom. It wasn't even a 1-bedroom because you had to walk through the bedroom to get to the kitchen. And she comes out and she sees all this stuff on the porch, and she starts crying. And her kids come out, and a couple of the older ones start crying. I start crying, and I'm hooked. And I'm blessed to say, Michael, in the last 22 years now, we have fed well in excess of 110,000 children here in Sarasota and Bradenton, now where I live, for the holidays. We've done tens of thousands of backpacks filled with school supplies to local children that don't have the basic supplies for school. We've been tens of thousands of teddy bears to the local police departments for officers to put in their vehicles if they encounter a child that's in a traumatic event, so they can comfort the child.
So that's your Tiny Hands Foundation.
That's correct. That's correct. And I paid for it, by the way, up until 2008-9 when the market crashed and I lost everything. Then I started taking donations. But the point I wanted to make here is, and I'm not bragging about these philanthropic things that I do, that there's a message in that. A lot of people believe that we have to achieve to be happy, that we can't be happy until we've reached a level of achievement. I'm going to tell you, if you incorporate giving back in any fashion, you're happily achieving. And I know that sounds like a play on words. Tony Robbins calls it the science of achievement versus the art of fulfillment. Achievement really is a science. If you want to learn multifamily, for God's sakes, come spend some time with me. I've got a boot camp coming up in Denver the end of July, and I'll give your peeps a great deal if they want to come, $197. And it's not a sales pitch. It's training for 3 full days. But I'll tell you about that later. But the point is, achievement is a science. I can give you the blueprint. You just have to go do it. Okay. Fulfillment, however, is an art. And what I mean by that, or what Tony means by that, and I agree, is that you have to discover what you're passionate about. For me, it's children. Maybe it's the elderly. Maybe it's the environment. Maybe it's animals, whatever it is. But maybe you're sitting there listening. Yeah, I'll do it when I have the money. I'll give back when I have the money. No, do it right now, because the money will come faster. Okay. And you'll be fulfilled. You'll be happily achieving instead of achieving to be happy. So, that was those were the epiphanies I had in that moment. And it was a gift, it was a real gift.
It's a beautiful thing. And I know that I always tell my kids, that it's not the stuff you accumulate. And it really is what you do for people, because at the end of the day, when you meet your maker in whatever form that takes, when people eulogize you, it's not about what you accumulated, it's about what you did. So, I'm involved with a combat veterans charity, and we work with combat vets who are at risk for death by suicide.
I'm very active in that as well. Every 22 minutes, a vet commits suicide. It's horrific. No, I know all about it. I've had podcasts on it. I've got students, and we've worked together, raised money. Now, I'm sorry I interrupted you, but that's something something I'm very passionate about as well.
All that tells me is that I'm going to send you a link to my charity.
Love it. Love it. Love it.
But no, it really is true that when you can actually help people, and like you said, whatever form that takes. I've always had a big appreciation for the military. I didn't serve, less than 1% of Americans do. And, it's because of these vets who sacrifice everything that I could live my life in relative peace.
Well, you're preaching to the choir. We live in the greatest country on earth because of that. I just had an event with my students. I was just telling you about 2 days ago, when I had all the vets stand up and we gave them our love. That's something I really, and I will say this to you, it's funny that, I started teaching about 4 years ago. I'm super proud of the fact that my students and I own somewhere around 60,000 units. And I mean, it's just incredible, but I get love almost every day. I'll show you behind me here. You can see behind the green screen, you can see some of the hundreds of thank you cards. The whole wall behind me is covered with thank you cards. You can't even see them all. And I don't say this is not ego, but when I tell you that I get love at least, I would say 3 to 5 times a day, maybe more. I get a DM, I get an email, I get a gift, I get a card, literally every day. And it's my greatest gift, which is why I'm addicted to this, why my wife puts up with me working Sundays. And, because, really life is about giving back. Every human being has the need. It's a human need to contribute. And honestly, anything in this universe that doesn't contribute, believe it or not, gets eliminated.
You're giving back to the kids through tiny hands, but at the same time, you're giving hope and inspiration you're teaching people how to fish, which, 2008, I lost all my money.
Did you?
And, I had to restart. I had to reinvent. And, COVID-19 has done the same to many other people. And, if you can take people who are in a difficult spot, or even if they're not in a difficult spot, but teach them how to create, and we'll get to that. But I mean, the way you grow wealth is certainly through real estate investing, and in, multifamily investing is fantastic. But, I know that, you made well, maybe it wasn't a mistake, but I know in 2008, you would cross collateralize single family homes with your multifamily homes.
So in 2008, I owned 800 houses and I had multiple apartment complexes. I was at a 30% loan to value. I only owed 30 cents on the dollar and I still crashed and burned. I lost $50 million in 2008. Now, yes, I had cross collateralized my packages of houses with my multifamily, which is the only reason I lost my multifamily was the houses that pulled me down.
Right.
And so, you know, and that's the reason I started my podcast actually was to give people that memo. If you're going to buy and hold, for God's sakes, don't do single family, do multifamily. It's much safer. It's easier to scale. It's more logistically easy and on and on and on. I'll never buy another house. I've owned 2,000 that I've rented long-term. I've owned 2,000 houses. I'll never buy another one except to, you know, second, third home to live in. But you know, multifamily is just so much better on every aspect. I debate this sometimes with the flippers and the wholesalers. We go on a podcast and we debate it and I kick their asses because it's, you know, really multifamily is just better, period.
Well, you know what, well, in New York, I don't know how familiar you are with the New York market. I was going to say it's income producing, but, you know, the New York government, the legislature has pounded on multifamily building owners, because they're the low-hanging fruit and a small constituency, even though 75% are small mom and pops. But you know, they've limited rent increases. They've limited the amount of rehabilitation you can apportion to apartments. And now there's legislation that's probably going to pass called good guy eviction, good cause eviction. And I don't know if you're familiar with that, but basically,
I will never invest in a blue state. It's not a political statement. It's just a business decision. And you know, life's too freaking short to deal with that crap. I'm sorry, but
well, you know, exactly right. So you have all these building owners, multifamily building owners, who out of the blue, you know, politicians who don't know business, have never known business, they just came in and slammed them. So,
they're freaking clueless. We could spend 5 hours on that topic, and we probably should be careful here. But don't get me started. My God,
wife always tells me don't talk about politics.
But don't get me started. You know, it's funny. It's funny. My you know, well, we should be careful. I'll leave it alone.
Listen, I don't want to ruin your career.
Oh, you won't ruin my career. Listen, my wife is black. She's supermodel beautiful. And she's a huge Trump supporter. In fact, we were down on Lincoln Road in South Beach and she saw this guy with a Trump hat before the election. And she's like, yay, Trump. We'd had a couple drinks and the guy interviewed her. He was interviewing and it went viral, over 2 million views because it's so unusual, you know, but anyway, I will tell you, you know, we digressed. Yes, we did. Let's be careful.
No question.
Yeah.
But it is, you know, you have to go where the money's treated best. And
why wouldn't you go to low-hanging fruit? I mean, you know, that's the beautiful thing about multifamilies. You can invest anywhere. I mean, I own assets in Dallas, Houston, Cincinnati, rich part of Dayton, Georgia. Just sold one in Kentucky. We have South Carolina, North Carolina, Florida. I mean, you know, you don't have to live where you invest when you invest in multifamily. It's a beautiful thing. And it was hard for me to get past that, honestly, because I'm very controlling and I figured I had to be in my backyard. But once I got past that, it's a beautiful thing. And you don't have to suffer through an oppressive, you know, governmental ecosystem. You just get out of it and just go invest where they want your business, right?
I agree. So how many doors do you control?
I don't like to do that publicly. I can tell you, I bought a few thousand in the last few years. But you know, a good number. I mean, I'm not the largest investor out there, but I'm, you know,
comfortable.
Oh, you know, there are thousands, you know, and I think we bought, I don't know, close to 4,000 in the last 3 years, I would say.
Phenomenal.
Yeah.
Phenomenal.
Thanks.
So
thanks.
Another part. So now that interest rates are moving, I was going to ask. So here's a question. We haven't really gotten into the multifamily part yet.
Right.
Oh, you cover underwriting mistakes, but here's a question for you because I experienced it with my middle daughter who went to the University of Maryland. So at the University of Maryland, there was a block of of apartments that were where the students lived. And they
Student
were
housing.
great, off-campus, great.
Off-campus student housing. Got it.
Yeah. And they were cash cows for the people who owned them because, the rents didn't go down, certainly. There was huge demand.
They rent by the room and everything. It's big money.
Yeah, it's big money. But about a mile away in what had been not a great part of College Park, they put up luxury high-rises that came furnished, that were not really priced all that much more than these other buildings. Like, how do you protect yourself from that kind of risk? I mean, there's risk in everything, but how do you protect against unforeseen competition?
Well, first of all, it shouldn't be unforeseen, number one. Okay. If you're doing your due diligence, which we teach at my boot camps, it's not unforeseen. But I got to tell you this, it's pretty hard right now. That would be a very unusual situation. Here's why. There is such a huge pent up demand right now. I think we're like, for next year, we're 2 million housing units short of having enough for people. And we become a renter nation. So, right. That example would be unusual and unlikely, frankly, because we're so behind in just about every market. And that's why rents have just exploded. My wife has a friend here in Sarasota that's renting a 2-bedroom apartment. They raised her rent $1,200 from $1,800 to $3,000. Okay, she had to move. She's moving to Texas. So my point is, that's probably not the thing to worry about. What's more concerning probably would be to get into a deal with not enough capital, to buy in an area that's tough and you haven't worked with C- or D tenants before, or hiring the wrong management company, or underestimating your expenses or overestimating your rents. Or there's lots of things that you need to be careful of, and that we teach before you buy a deal. But your example with demand is not as big of a concern. Now, sure, there's going to be some markets that get saturated eventually, but it's going to be a while. I'm just going to tell you that right now, which is why it's been so crazy, and the rents have literally, in multiple areas, gone up 20% in 1 year. It's unbelievable.
Well, New York City is, 2 of my daughters live in New York City, and they live in large 1-bedrooms for like close to $3,000 a month. Actually, one lives in not even a 1-bedroom, but it's crazy. The rents are pre-pandemic levels and then some. So to your point of multifamily being a solid investment. So
it absolutely is. And the tax benefits and the really the safety. I'm going to tell you, COVID was a blip for most owners. Now, not all, some suffered, but for most owners, it was a blip. I actually did a YouTube video on the coming crash. I was wrong, because I really thought it was going to be the catalyst, and it wasn't. I got a lot of crap online for it. But the point is, I thought that was going to be it. But the other thing is, like in 2008 and 9, when the market crashed, within 3 years, rents had exceeded 2006 levels. That's how fast multifamily rebounded. Now, here's the thing. Other asset classes like office and retail and industrial, they didn't get governmental help. Renters got help to pay their landlords in this last crash. So, I love it. Obviously, I love it because I do it and teach it. But the point is, it really is an incredible asset class.
Well, they did get cash if they chose to. So not to go back to blue state, red state, but, in New York, they had a huge eviction moratorium that lasted the entire time. And tenants got rental assistance. We got hundreds of thousands of dollars in rental assistance. But they still didn't have to pay their rent.
No, well, you're right. No, you're absolutely right. And that's a shame, because in states like Texas and Florida and Louisiana and thinking Ohio, they were able to stay in their units with the rental assistance. Again, we're going down that slippery political slope again. But
there's no question, rental assistance for a lot of people was a godsend. I know, my company, title insurance, was one of the fortunate industries to be deemed essential. But, I can't tell you the number of people whose, I'm sure whose businesses disappeared.
Right.
through no fault of their own. And it's tragic.
Oh, no, listen, it is, again, we're going down a slippery slope here because it is tragic. And I think it was completely unnecessary too. But again, maybe an off topic, non-recorded conversation about the lunacy that I think happened.
Exactly. I agree with that. So let me ask you, how you offer many different ways for novices to learn the ins and outs of multifamily investing, which, a lot of people are familiar with, how a residential home is valued, it's comps, it's, two like houses next door to each other are going to have similar values, whereas, net operating income is really what drives
commercial real estate. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, cap rate and net operating income. So, how do you bring a novice in? How long does it take them until they are now in the position to get involved in the marketplace?
Well, honestly, if you're listening and you're interested in multifamily, for God's sakes, come spend 3 days with me in Denver. Like I said, you can come for $197. Let me just tell you how you can do that. Text the word Rod, my name, to 72345, or go to multifamilybootcamp.com. Now, if the price has gone up, it's going to end up at $600 for the, the basic general admission tickets. If it's gone up, just DM me on any social channel and say you heard me on Michael's podcast, and I'll get you that $197 price. But it's not a sales pitch. My event's a 3-day event, and you will know this business when you leave after 3 days of full-on drinking through a fire hose. I'm going to tell you, just drinking through a fire hose. But we teach, building a team, finding deals, evaluating those deals, the due diligence, the financing, syndication, joint ventures, property management. And I spend a lot of time on mindset as well. So you actually take action with what you learn, right? And so, I will say this: if you come to my event and you don't absolutely freaking love it, I don't mean like it, I mean love it, you DM me afterwards, I'll give you your money back. It's never happened, but there's a first time for everything. And I've had thousands and thousands of people attend my live events and my virtual events, but I'm excited to do them live. Denver's my old stomping ground. That's where I lived for 30 years. So I love going back there. And we anticipate about 1,000 people. And that's the other thing. This business is a team sport, multifamily real estate. Yeah, you can do single family on your own, but you're not going to do multifamily on. You're going to align with other people, and there'll be 1,000 other investors there that are motivated and like-minded. So the networking is incredible as well. And I do panels every day with I'll have billions of dollars represented by the panelists on stage. Many of them are my students. And so it's just a blast. Everybody, if you go to Multifamily Bootcamp, just scroll down to the bottom and look at the hundreds of testimonials unsolicited that are there. But
listen, you wouldn't be here if I didn't have faith in what you talk about is the gospel, because
I appreciate that. I take it very, very seriously. I do it because I love it. My main business is investing, when you love what you do, work is play, right? You never work another day in your life. And that's where I'm at.
That is what they say. So Rod, what's your URL? What's the URL people should go to?
If the boot camp, just go to multifamilybootcamp.com, or like I say, text Rod to 72345 and we'll send you that link. But my website is rodkhleif.com, and nobody can spell my name. So go to Real Estate with Rod and it links to my website, Real Estate with Rod. And there's a ton of free material there, books and videos and articles. So Real Estate with Rod, tons of free resources there. My podcast, Lifetime Cashflow, like you said, it's been downloaded over 12 million times. I'm really proud of that. And I do a clip every week called Own Your Power, which is just about that, owning your power. It's 5 minutes. So even if you're not interested in multifamily, if you want to get juiced once a week, listen to, there's hundreds of them there. Listen to one of those clips. And I promise you, I'll juice you. I'll motivate you. They're, like I say, they're 5 minutes, and I do one every week, and I love doing them. And you'll see why when you listen. So,
well, you know what? Your enthusiasm is infectious. Your knowledge is obvious, and I think that anyone. So, before my current company, I owned a commercial mortgage lending company. So, I know a little bit about underwriting, but I don't know enough that I couldn't, I'm sure, learn a lifetime of education from you.
Well, it's kind of you to say that. Thank you.
Absolutely. Listen, there's a reason that you've been this successful. So
thank you.
we really barely scratched the surface of multifamily. We did go off on a couple of other tangents, but I think they were important tangents because I think people need to get their head right before they can really work on anything else. So
80 to 90% of this is mindset. It really is. It's 10 to 20% is the mechanical knowledge. If it was just mechanical knowledge, there'd be a bunch of wealthy librarians and college professors out there. It's the do, and it's the keep doing. And that's why, I spend so much time on it, because that really is the bulk of it. You just have to take action. You got to make a decision, take action, push through fear. And I spend a lot of time on that at my events.
I can't tell you how many people are just the inertia, people, there's fear of change. There's
Right.
fear of taking a shot. Everyone gets very comfortable in their comfort zone, which I
Right.
guess is why they call it that.
Right.
But listen, anyone who's interested in this aspect of the market, look up Rod and take advantage of his offer, because I don't think you'll be disappointed. And hopefully we can have you back here again.
Sounds great. And we can focus on multifamily, which of course I can love talking about as well. But thanks for having me on, Michael. I appreciate you.
Thank
brother.
you for coming, and I hope to see you again soon.
Likewise. Thanks.
All right.
Welcome to. Thanks for listening to Do You Ever Wonder? And if there's a subject that's always been on your mind, let us know. We hope you'll join us next time for the show that answers your questions. And please like and share this episode with your friends and on your social media. See you next time.